right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as mentioned in the previous mini video that I created, I'm going to start going over the PowerPoint presentations for our textbook. I'm going to show you that in just a minute. In fact, let's look at it right now. Let's see, where is that? So again, our textbook is Murock's C# 7th edition, and I'm going to start by going over the first 3 chapters, which is an introduction to Visual Studio, followed, as you can see, by the next 8 chapters, the C# language essentials, followed by the next 5 chapters on OOP, or object-oriented programming, then a couple chapters on basic skills working with data, and we'll end up with 4 chapters on database programming. All right, so to see that in a little more detail, we're going to now go over Chapter 1, which is how to get started with Visual Studio. All right, so let's get going. Again, I do not go over PowerPoint presentations in class, which is why I'm doing these the way I'm doing them. So how to get started with Visual Studio. One thing about books from Murock is they give you 2 different types of objectives for each chapter, those being applied objectives and knowledge objectives. I don't want to read these to you, but again, the idea is this is your typical opening chapter. And in the applied, they're going to describe the different things that make up your C# project, okay? And don't worry about the rest of it. Of course, we're going to go over it. And for the knowledge, it's a little bit more in-depth, and it talks about the different kinds of applications you can make, the different platforms that you can use to make these applications, etc. Now, other than the fact that you will have a written test on this stuff, much of the material in this chapter, not all of it, but much of it will never, you won't be tested on, like I said, other than the written test. But it's your typical opening chapter. So right before your very eyes, in just a couple minutes, I'm going to build this application for you. I won't put in the code yet. All right, we'll come back to it. But this is this investment calculator. All right, so we'll come back and look at that in just a couple minutes. Now, as mentioned here, there's 3 platforms that you can use for developing Windows desktop applications. The only one that we care about for this class is the first one. We're going to be using WinForms, which is, as you can see, short for Windows Forms. We're not going to talk at all about WPF, Windows Presentation Format. We're not going to talk at all about UWP, Universal Windows Platform. All right. In addition, if there's time at the end of the class, there never seems to be, we can talk a little bit about ASP.NET. All right. That's where this course may be going in the future, but as of right now, it's not there. All right. Now, this book is a little bit dated. All right. Now, the funny thing is I say it's dated, but when you take a look at it, what does it say here? Published January 2021. So it's about a year, between a year and a half old, right? But back then, Visual Studio 2022 was not available. It is now, and that's the one that we are going to be using. All right. Now, why? There's several reasons, but the main one, the Community Edition, is free. I'm going to show you how you can go and install that. I've already got it on my machine, but the first day of class, I will make sure it's uninstalled and we can install it together. All right. In addition, I will tape that. So if you have any problems with it, you'll be able to go back and take a look. As far as the .NET programming languages, F# was basically Microsoft's answer to JavaScript, but it never really caught on. Visual Basic, when .NET started, most everybody did Visual Basic.NET. All right. But over time, especially with the advent of Java and the popularity of Java, I've always called C# Microsoft's answer to the Java programming language. Not JavaScript, but Java. All right. So here's how it looks kind of under the hood. The higher up you get, you're getting closer to the user. The lower you get, you're getting closer to the machine. So we're going to be up here, and the only one we care about, again, is the Visual C#. Sometimes it's called C#, sometimes it's called Visual C#. I'll probably almost always refer to it as just C#. Here's the .NET framework. We will be using the Windows Forms classes almost exclusively as far as what's in here. And as far as here, this is the stuff that happens under the hood. I think you'll see a slide on this in a little bit, what happens when you go and compile your program. And this, of course, is the machine. Now, I'm using Windows 10. All right, my machine is actually a little old. It's about 4 years old. If you're using Windows 11, I don't think at least there'll be any differences for you. So this whole thing that they show right here, this is your IDE. This is your integrated development environment. All right, this area that you see right here, it can hold different things. For right now, what's in here is the toolbox, and you're going to see this in just a moment. This area that you see in here, this is your form designer area, and you'll notice there's the little nubs right there. You can pull on one of those and make this wider, make it longer, etc. All right, this area that's in here, the top half, is what's called the Solution Explorer, and it shows the name of your solution and any projects that make up that solution and any files that make up that project. Finally, the last thing that's in here is called the Properties window. And each time you click on something different in here, their associated properties come up. Don't worry about memorizing any of this. After a while, it really and truly will become pretty much second nature to you. All right? Okay, so when you go and you compile your program, which is pretty doggone easy, it's clicking a button. If everything works okay, meaning there are no errors, etc., this is what's going to happen. So you come in here into visualstudio.net and you come into your IDE, and you go in and you create your project. Your solution has got a project in it. Then you go and you compile the project. If there are no errors, it'll take your project and convert it into what's called intermediate language, IL, more often referred to as MISL, and that's MS for Microsoft Intermediate Language. All right, and it'll pick up whatever class references you have, and then it'll be run basically using the common language runtime. And if you don't get that, don't worry about it. This is the screen that you're going to see when we start running the program. I'm sorry, this is the screen you're going to see when we bring up Visual Studio. Now yours will look quite a bit different in that yours will say Visual Studio 2022, and under the Open Recent, if you haven't created any projects yet, there'll be nothing there. No problem. This is what we'll be interested in, and not exclusively, but most of the time, we'll be using Create a New Project. If you've got an existing project, you can either click on it there to open it, or you can open it from here. All right, I think that I don't know if I ever used the clone or the checkout or the open a local folder. So when you bring it up, so let's say that we came in here and we clicked on one of these. In fact, let's say we open a project or solution right there. It's going to come up and look like this. The solutions will be in a file .sln. We'll look at all that as we go on in here. Okay. So as it says, every C# project has a project file. You never want to manipulate that one. You should never even open that one yourself. Every project is inside, or every project file is inside of a solution file. So again, solution file, project files. All right. Most of these you're never going to end up touching yourself. I'm just telling you that right now. And you shouldn't play with their system files. All right. When you open a project file, Visual Studio opens the solution that contains the project. When you open a solution file, it automatically opens all projects in the solution. So it is possible, and we'll look at this later on in the semester, to put multiple projects into the same solution. All right, we'll talk about that at a different time. All right, sometimes the files, project and solution files, are stored in the same directory. Sometimes they're in a subdirectory. We're not going to worry about any of that for right now. I've already mentioned to you a couple different ways of opening these, and I'll show you once we get it up and running how you can close them as well. So this is Visual Studio as it says, with the form designer displayed. So what I'm going to do, a little bit of magic here, but not really. All right, I'm going to come in here, do my print screen, and I'm going to come in here, let's see, and I'm going to bring this up. I want to take a screenshot basically of just this. So this is what I'm going to build for you right now. I just want to have that open in its own window. So I'm going to come down here, and you may or may not be able to see this, but it's okay if you can't. It's purple here, and it kind of looks almost like a little bow tie or something, but I'm going to right mouse click on it, choose Visual Studio 2022. Now I've already built this, but I'm going to come back and I'm going to rebuild it. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say create a new project. Again, yours will probably be empty here, and unlike in the book, yours will say Visual Studio 2022 and not Visual Studio 2019. So I'm going to go to create a new project. All right, and when you do this, again, yours might be empty here. It's no big thing, but you're going to have a bunch of different possibilities here. The two types we're going to be using almost exclusively in here is either you're going to come in here and type in console, and we want to use the console app for the .NET framework, but that's like running things from the command line. And what I mean is you have no GUI, no graphical user interface whatsoever, but we're going to start basically when we begin building our own programs. We'll probably start there. But what we want to do is we want to type in here Windows Form. And you're going to see Windows Forms app. You don't want the one that just says Windows Forms app. You want Windows Forms app .NET framework. All right, you can see there's C#. That's the one we want. So you click on there, and you can either click there and click next, or you can double click on there. Either one will work. Now it says, what do you want to name your project? Well, this will be an investment calculator. How do I know that? Because it says there, calculate investment. So I'm going to call this my investment calculator, just like that. All right, don't put blank spaces in here. Can you? Typically, yes. It's just not a good idea to do so. Your solution will probably be in a different area than what we showed here. So you click the ellipsis, and I would recommend saving stuff to your desktop. You know best what's best for you. By default, when you create a brand new project, it gives you a solution of the same name. But just to show you that they don't have to be the same, I'm going to change this. So this is my investment calculator, and we'll call this project. And then down here, we'll call this my investment calculator solution. And again, you'll notice I'm not using any blank spaces in any of the names. Don't check this. There's really no reason to do that. And the framework, just leave it alone. All right, click create. And now what you're going to see is you're going to start to see the magic here. So there's our solution, my investment calculator solution. There's my project, my investment calculator project. And you'll notice there's a bunch of files in here. And other than the one that says form.cs, at least for a while, we're not going to touch any of the rest of them. Don't worry, I just opened that, but that's no problem. Let's close that right away. All right, we're going to go over what all this stuff is and what it all means. I'm going to cut this down and try to make it pretty much the same size they showed it in the book. All right, so this area in here is my toolbox. If it doesn't show on your screen, go to View and choose Toolbox, which again, as you can see, is about 2/3 of the way down. All right. Okay. So if it isn't showing, so if it's empty like this, in fact, let's just take all these and let's remove them all. So if yours comes up and looks like this, you go to View on your menu, and I'll first go to Toolbox. And there's my toolbox. Now, if you click this little thing that looks like a stick pin right here, all right, if you click on that, I'm going to bring it up again. So here's my toolbox. If you click on it, what it'll do is it'll move your form over so this will stay on the screen. And I kind of like doing that. So there you go. So there again is my toolbox. There's other things that this window can hold. We'll talk about them later. This is our form. This is our form designer area. This is the area that's going to show us warnings and errors and runtime messages, etc. And you'll notice I don't have over here my Solution Explorer or my Properties window. So if I go to View, somewhere over here will be my Solution Explorer. I think it's near the top. There it is. There it is right there. And if I click View again, somewhere down near the bottom is my Properties window. Now these are dockable. You can move them around. So let's say that you do. So you move them around and you get this all screwed up. All right, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it over here, and I'm going to take this and I'm going to move it over here. You're like, oh my gosh, I totally screwed this up. So you try to put them back. All right, can you put them back? The answer is yes, and you can see that it's going to give you this little area, etc. But you're like, it doesn't look nice like it did before. If that happens, you go over here to Tools. All right, and under Tools, you go to where is it? Import and Export Settings. So Tools, Import and Export Settings. All right, then you say Reset All Settings, and you say Next. You don't want to save your current settings if you screwed it up. If you do want to save it, you can. So I'm going to just click on here where it says no, just reset it. Click Next. Make sure it's set to Visual C#, and click Finish, and it'll take a second. It's funny, it usually doesn't take this long, but it's totally fine. Well, that's interesting. This has never happened before, so of course, while you're taping, it would. Choose the default collections. Import now. It's actually the way that it should be. So let's see what happened. Well, it kicked me out because this is the other copy of it that I've got running. So let me try that again. No problem whatsoever. And notice here, I can click under Recent, and there's my solution for the one I just created. It's another way I can bring it up. And it says it encountered a problem or was shut down. Choose which following you want to save. And I do want to save all of them, so I want to recover them. That's kind of neat that that happened just because you at least got to see it. And hey, do I screw up more than my share? All right, so I'm here. I can remove that. I can remove that. And here I'm back. And you'll notice that what's back again, my Explorer and my Properties window are back. Okay? So the first thing I want to do here is I want to rename my form. So by default, it's called form1.cs. Technically, you can click here or click on the form and go down in my Properties window to text. I always recommend to people when you want to change the name of your form that you right mouse click on the form and choose Rename. All right, and you don't want to remove that .cs that's there. It won't hurt if you do it, if you put it back. But I'm just going to call this My Investment Calculator form. In fact, normally with a form, the first thing you put there is you put Microsoft recommends some prefixes. So I'm going to put FRM, My Investment Calculator. FRM, My Investment Calculator. And I'm going to hit Enter. And it says you're renaming a file. Do you want to take any internal references to that file and rename them also? Yes, I do. Okay, so now you'll notice that it's renamed this and all of the files underneath it. All right, so we've got that. The next thing, if we look at the picture that we have here, it says up here, calculate interest right there. I'm not going to worry about this right now. That's just a little image. So I'm just going to put calculate investment up here. So right there, I'm going to click there. And for my text for the form that says Form 1, I'm going to change that to calculate investment, hit Enter, and boom, that's been changed. All right, so like I said, I'm building this for you, and I'm building it very incrementally. All right, so this thing right here that you see, this is called a group box, and it's going to allow us to put these two radio buttons, is what they're called, inside of the group box. So let me first come in and create a group box. So I'm going to go in and under my toolbox, you'll notice I get all this stuff. If I just click under Common Controls, it'll show me most everything I need. Or I can click and show all Windows forms. I mean, there's a lot of ways I can do this. So I'm going to come down here, and there's my group box. I'm going to put that in, put it over here about, I'm eyeballing this. It's not going to be perfect. All right, so on here, the first thing I'm going to do is change the name, and you should get used to renaming stuff right away. Group box, GB for group box, and I'll call it GB. What do they have here? I'm going to see what they have. This says calculate, so I'm going to call it GB calculate. So GB calculate. All right, nothing magical changed there. But I'm going to go down to my text, and I'm going to type in calculate. And you can see now how that has changed. All right, so I've got that done. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 of these radio buttons. Why are they called radio buttons? I could give you the story about it. It's based off of back in the 60s, 70s when people had a push-button radio in their car, and only one station on your radio station could be selected at a time. It's basically what it comes from. All right, so what do these 2 things here say? All right, so they say future value and monthly investment. So I'll call my first radio button RAD. What was it again? I'm sorry. Future value. So I'm going to call this RAD, future value. And I'm going to put down here for the text. So text can have blank spaces. So that's going to say future value. So you can see that's done. All right. And then right here, I'm going to call this one RAD, monthly investment. You cannot put a blank space in when you're naming things. All right. So let me grab this text, put it down here in the actual text field, but put a space between monthly and investment, hit enter. All right, now that's done. This is going to be very ugly. We can work with colors and stuff if we want to. That's not really important right now. All right, so I've got that done. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to find the control called label. I'm just going to drag one of those out here, and I'm going to make this pretty big. All right, so to make it bigger, notice I can't really stretch it. I've got to go up here into my properties for this and find one that's called auto size and set it from true to false. And now you'll notice that I can change it. All right, so I've got that done. And there's 4 of these. So there's 2 of them. There's 3 of them. And there's 4 of them. Now, normally when I do this, I do come in and change like the background color of my form or whatever, just because this is very hard to read otherwise. So let's click on the form itself. Let's go over to back color. And I'm going to click custom, and I'm just going to make it a light blue. Now you can see it makes this stuff much easier to see. And in fact, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to highlight my 4 labels, and I'm going to make them 1 shade darker blue, just so they stick out. That's all, the only reason I'm doing this. All right, so now I've got these 4 things. So let's go and change these to what's shown in our picture. So it's monthly investment. So this will become a label, and labels start with LBL. LBL, monthly investment. Again, I'll grab all of that, copy all of that text, and that's the text that'll be in here then. Monthly investment, but I'll put a space between monthly and investment. There, we've got that. Now I can go in here just to show you. I can go into text align, and I can put this, for example, to there or whatever I want, or I can just center it on the screen. There's a lot of ways that I can do this. All right, so I've got now my monthly investment. Next, yearly interest rate. So this will become LBL, yearly interest rate. And again, I'll grab that text, come down here, put that in. Now I've got that, and let's just center it so that they all look kind of the same here. So there's that one. Next, I have number of years and then future value. So this will be LBL number of years. And again, I will just grab the text and I will put it down here. So it'll say number of space years. Whoops. So number of years. And again, I will center this as well. And finally, we have future value. So this will be LBL future value. And again, we'll grab that text. So these are what we're naming them. That's how we refer to them in code. this is the actual text it will have on them. All right, oh, I don't know what I did. I must have grabbed the L there. And again, let's take this one and center it as well. All right, we're almost done, believe it or not. These aren't really lining up real well. That's a little better. There we go. All right, next let's come in here and find this thing that's called text box, and that's how we add information. All right, so I'm going to come over here. It's probably a little wider than it has to be, but I'll do that. And let's put in a total of 4 of those. All right, so this was LBL, monthly investment, so this will become TXT, monthly investment. You don't typically put code inside of here, so this will be or a name. You don't put any name inside of text boxes typically. So the second one was yearly interest rate, so that'll be TXT, yearly interest rate. It's not mandatory that you call the text boxes the same thing as the labels, but it's kind of preferred. It makes it easy to see what goes with what. TXT, number of years, and finally, TXT, future value. Oops. All right, next thing I want to do is I want to add 2 buttons. Just to show you, there's really 2 ways that you can add buttons. There's more than 2, but I can double click and it puts it in the upper corner. Totally fine. Or I can just grab my button and drag it out and let go. Either way will work fine. You'll notice I can make this bigger if I want to do that as well. All right, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to copy that and paste it. So now there's my 2 buttons. And I'm trying to make this look at least somewhat like it did in the picture. So there, we got calculate and we've got exit. So this one will be BTN, calculate, and the text on it will be calculate. And finally, this will be BTN exit, and the text on that will be exit. Now, I've just walked you through this. Whoops, I don't want that to just say exit, BTN exit. All right. Now, I can look in here and I can click on this little white, I got this white area that shows me where I am. And if I click here, it'll show me everything I've added. And that's a quick way if I need to jump to any place. But I just want to make sure I put in prefixes for all my names. And it looks like I have. Now, I'm about to run this. It won't do anything because I put no code in there. But 2 things I want to do. The first thing I want to do is I want to click on a blank spot on my form. All right. Then I want to highlight everything on the form, and I can probably do a Control A, or I can do what's called lasso them, which means I hold down on the left mouse button and drag and make this invisible box around everything. All right, now once I've done that, I again want to write, whoops, I don't know why I didn't take it, but all right, and I want to right mouse click and I want to choose lock controls. Now my interface is locked into place and I can't move anything. All right, I can just unlock it in the same way if I need to do so. The last thing I want to do, is I want to click on the form again, and I want to go down to where it says start position right here. And I want to choose center screen. So when it runs, it should run right in the middle of the screen. And there it is. Now again, this works in that I can go back and forth between my radio buttons. I can put stuff in here if I want to, but nothing is going to happen. So I can put stuff in there. When I click these buttons, though, nothing happens because they haven't been programmed yet. And that's what this class is all about. All right, so I did that fairly quickly just to show you what's going on in here. All right, so let's continue on and finish up this first chapter. So I kind of went through all this stuff with you. Now, don't worry about the code. Of course, we're going to talk about the code. We'll write the code. I just didn't want this first lecture to get so long and so confusing that I would start to lose people. But we will, I guarantee it. So here's our Solution Explorer. And again, other than our form file, all right, And here we have, there's two, it looks like there's two forms, but other than that, we're not going to really, or three forms, we're not going to be touching these files. So you don't want to touch your dependencies, your frameworks, your properties. You don't want to touch these. They're internal files. We'll look at some of them as we go on. All right. So as it says, the Explorer uses different icons to show you the difference between these. So forms look like this. Folders look like this, etc. C# files have got a green C with a pound sign. Each form is defined by two different source files where each contains a partial class. That won't make any sense to you until really we get into about Chapter 12, and it doesn't have to. All right, a source code file that doesn't define a form is usually stored. Yeah, so we can make our own files. Again, we'll do more of that as we go on in here. Okay. When you create a new application, Visual Studio creates the program.cs file for you automatically. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening under the hood, behind the scenes, whatever you want to say for this. All right. All right. When you create a new Forms application, Visual Studio automatically adds two frameworks. Again, we don't have to worry about that. All right. I already showed you that this stuff is dockable and you can move it around. So I'm not going to go through that again. And I showed you how to set it back again. They show you how to do all that stuff in here. And I even showed you how to redo it, so to speak, or put it back into its default format. So I'm not going to go through any more of those. All right, there is a project properties window. All right, and there's stuff in here. The bottom line is, by the time this makes sense to you, you'll realize that virtually 100% of the time, you don't have to change anything that's in here. All right, that's very much a generalization, but it almost always holds true. All right, so there's the different .NET versions. Don't worry about them. All right, we're already using we've got ours set for us already. The same thing with that target framework, the thing that's in there. We'll talk about that at a later time, but just not right now. Then they run the program, and they've got a little thing in here where they've got a the Muroc thing, and it's in there. So in their program, this is what we typically would refer to as a splash screen. So this is the screen that comes up at the beginning, and if you click Calculate Investment, it would then show you this screen. And if you clicked Calculate SYD Depreciation, it would show you another screen. You don't have to worry about it at all right now. All right, so that's pretty much it for the first chapter. So it says how to build a project without running it and how to run the project. The only other thing I'd say about that is when we came in here and wanted to run the project, there's different ways of doing it. I would suggest that virtually 100% of the time, you just click the green start button right there. There's a little arrow there that says start. Just click on there and it runs the project. Now that pretty much is everything I can think of because that finishes up Chapter 1. So when I come back with the next lecture, as you'd probably guess, it'll be Chapter 2. And as soon as I can find it down here in my mess, and it's how to design a Windows Forms application. All right, and it'll be a lot of the same stuff. They build a different thing in here. This one we will build, and we'll even put in the code. All right, so I will be back with that presentation shortly.